And once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Junction City Area Chamber of Commerce Election Forum, our final session for this evening. And first of all, we'd like to thank you all very, very much for coming out this evening, and for all of those who are listening on the radio and our live stream here this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to the Junction City Area Chamber of Commerce, to C.L. Hoover Opera House for hosting this evening. By the way, C.L. Hoover Opera House has a big band show coming up this Saturday night. I know they have tickets available. It's going to be a great show. Make sure that you call up and get tickets for that. It's going to be fantastic this Saturday night, so make sure you take advantage of that. All right, to our last presentation for this evening, we have candidates for the U.S. House of Representatives. And this is the position that was formerly held by Tim Huelskamp, who was defeated in the primary. And we have represented this evening the independent candidate, Alan LaPolice, and also the Republican candidate, Roger Marshall, for the U.S. House of Representatives. So we are ready to start. And gentlemen, we will start with the opening statement. And Alan LaPolice, you are first up, and you get 3 minutes for your opening statement.
I think I'll stand. Good evening, and thank you all for staying here tonight to hear us out. Political discourse these days isn't the most pleasurable thing to do, so I'm grateful that you're here. My name is Alan LaPolice. I grew up just northwest of here in Cloud County and in Clay County, or in Washington County. I grew up on a dairy farm. I say that dairy farmers, they know farming better than most, because there's no break with dairy farming. You're up at 4 in the morning milking cows, and you're milking cows at 4. I didn't get to play basketball or football because I was too busy milking cows. And in the summer, we were growing our crops. We had corn and wheat. We had milo and alfalfa, and that kept us busy. I left the area when I was 18 to join the military. I served in the United States Army. I chose infantry because it sounded like a lot of fun, jumping out of perfectly good airplanes and rappelling out of helicopters. I ended up being sent to the Middle East. I fought in the first Gulf War. I was in the largest tank battle in American history, the Battle of Medina Ridge. I'm very proud of my service, and I wouldn't change that for the world. The bulk of the remainder of my life has been helping my father on the farm, but also education. I think education is one of the keys to anyone's success. Anyone who's anybody had a teacher, and so I taught for many years. I was handpicked to be a principal for an at-risk high school, and then I went back to school, got 2 master's degrees, and became a superintendent, so I know education pretty well. I'm doing this because I see something is wrong. Something is very broken in politics. And tonight we'll discuss whether it's the economy, or whether it's immigration, or whether it's healthcare, or whether it's defense. And it's all of those things, but that's not it. That's not what's really wrong. What's really wrong in politics is that you and me, and I believe even Dr. Marshall, we don't trust it anymore. We don't trust the political process. You've got a candidate that's saying that the election is rigged. Now, I don't think that the election is rigged so much as the process is rigged. And the reason that it's rigged is because of this. This is why no one trusts the government. Because money has corrupted the process. Because money is infused directly into political campaigns, and it buys races, and it buys legislation. And anyone that says otherwise isn't paying attention. Because look at the economic recovery. Wall Street's recovered brilliantly. Wall Street's on record highs. Main Street, however, is still stagnant. Why is that? Why is our middle class shrinking? Why is it that wages are stagnant? Why have we not seen this robust recovery that people talk about in politics? Because the political process has become corrupted by the influence of money. This is $55, and that's how much it costs in the primary election to nominate Dr. Marshall for this seat. $55 for every single voter. We need to change that process. I'm going to change that process. I'll overturn Citizens United, and I will never sell out to any special interest, because my only interest is you, the voter.
Okay, Roger Marshall.
Well, good evening. It's great to be back in the Opera House. As you all know, I'm a physician and an obstetrician. Over the past 25 years, I've been on call every day, every other night, delivered about 5,000 babies. And the number one lesson I've learned is that the most important thing a physician does is listen to their patients. I've learned that if I listen to my patients long enough, they tell me when something's wrong. And if I listen longer, they even tell me how to fix the situation. And I've taken that same listening skill on the road. My family and I have traveled almost 40,000 miles. Scandia was our 105th community we were in last week, and I've listened. What Kansans tell me their three biggest concerns is the economy, national security, and health care. And I'm going to just briefly touch on those issues. Health care, if I was elected, I would probably be the only physician in Congress that's ran a hospital as well as helped overseeing 3 county health departments. I understand health care. A sixth of your budgets are going towards health care. We have to find better solutions, and that's what I believe in, is an incremental approach to replacing the Affordable Care Act. The other two issues, national security and the economy. I believe in peace through strength. I'm not a warmonger. I don't want to send our troops in harm's way unless it's absolutely necessary. But I believe that if we developed a stronger military, if we had a stronger reputation, that ISIS would not be the threat that it is today. Economy, the biggest problem in our economy is government overregulation. Government overregulation creates uncertainty. The government is holding our heads underwater, keeping us from growing this economy. When I think of national security and economy, I can't help but think of Junction City, where the two actually become one issue. From my standpoint, Fort Riley is the single biggest economic driver in the entire state, let alone my district, and I will treat her as such, something that's vitally important to our economy. Sequestration is a product of a Congress that can't figure out long-term solutions. What I will bring to Congress is a person that can bring people together to solve problems. When I get together to run a community church or a community United Way or build ball fields, I don't look at people as Republicans or Democrats. I look at them as citizens that want our community to grow. And that's what I would say about this situation, is I want to see us have a strong military as well as a strong economy. I've made a big investment in time to Junction City. I think we've been here 15, 16 times, probably been to 15 of the MAC breakfast. I understand the strengths of this community, all the great things you have going for it, why this base needs to stay open and actually grow. It's economically one of the least expensive places in the world to train troops. We have airspace from here to Smoky Hill. We have great new grade schools here, great collaboration with the public school systems. I'd be honored to represent you as your congressman from the big 1st District.
Roger, we will stay with you with our next question, and this has to do with whoever is elected to this position will be new in Congress, and is that going to be a challenge, and how do you attack that in your first term in the legislature?
Okay.
And 2 minutes.
Great. To me, my life has always been about relationships. It's about growing relationships with people. Now, my opponent's going to say that this is a bad thing, but Speaker Paul Ryan is reaching out to me. The chairman of the Ag Committee is reaching out to me. They would like to see me on the House Agriculture Committee. When I sat down with Paul Ryan, we spoke all evening about solutions. We didn't talk about Democrats or Republicans. We didn't talk about President Obama. We didn't talk about Mrs. Clinton or Mr. Trump. We talked about solutions. So my approach, though a freshman congressman, is because of this race we just finished, we gained significant national notoriety, and people are looking towards us. And I think what they were seeing me as a physician who brings solutions. I understand health care. The speaker wants to know how I would fix health care. He wants to talk about national security with me because we have Fort Riley. He wants to talk about the economy with me since I've signed a paycheck every other week for 25 years for as many as 300 people. So I think that I'm going to bring a reasonable voice, a traditional Kansas conservative voice back to Congress, which they expect.
Okay, Mr. LaPolice.
It's hard not to address that when you're running as a political outsider with outsider solutions. Even if the Speaker of the House is reaching out to you with no political experience, no political background, he's reaching out to you, they don't reach out to outsiders. They don't go outside of their comfort zone and pick people and say, I can work with this guy because he's going to change the way we do things. They want people that aren't going to change the way. They want people that aren't going to buck the system, because for them, it works just fine. For those on Capitol Hill, for those in the Beltway, they are more concerned about winning re-election than doing their jobs. And the Republican Party, while I value what the Republican Party is supposed to value, limited but effective government, fiscal responsibility, strong defense, and family values, they don't do that. Because in the 6 years where the Congress was led by Republicans, in the 6 years, there's over $6 trillion in new debt. Don't tell me that's fiscally conservative. Don't tell me that's problem solving. They've created more debt than all the Congresses before them in a short 6 years. It's amazing to me that these insider politicians think that they're fooling us into believing they're solving our problems. They're not. They're sending us into catastrophic debt, and they can't get along. Speaker Paul Ryan's a great guy. I look forward to working with him should I get the honor of serving. But Speaker Paul Ryan has a very failed tax policy, identical to Governor Sam Brownback's. It's worth noting that Speaker Paul Ryan started his political career working for Sam Brownback. And his Better Way tax policy is the exact same trickle-down roadmap shot of adrenaline that Sam Brownback has inflicted upon this economy. Our economy is hurting because he cut all of the taxes on the wealthiest and on the LLCs and the sub-S-corps. Ryan wants to do the exact same thing at the federal level. No Democrat's going to sign on to that because no Democrat's going to think that's going to work. No Republican can work with a Democrat right now because there's too much intransigence and because they do not work across the aisle. I don't have that liability. I'm independent. So I don't have to work across the aisle. I'm literally in the aisle.
Okay, Alan, we will continue with you with our next question, and it is about sequestration and the effect that it could possibly have on this area with Fort Riley here and the possibility of a dramatic troop levels down from 470,000 to 420,000. Your thoughts on how would we protect Fort Riley if that downsizing occurs with sequestration?
We just do. Sequestration is the product, it's the result of the Budget Control Act of 2011. When they set up the Budget Control Act, they used this fail-safe. They used this device known as sequestration because no one will be foolish enough to cut radically our defense budget, and no one will be foolish enough not to actually create a budget that would work. So in the Budget Control Act, they said, well, we'll throw this like this situation in there that no one's going to want. But you know what was surprising? They took it. They couldn't negotiate a proper budget, and so sequestration kicked in. And when it did, it cut troop levels. It cut base amounts. It cut everything across the board because that was the radical approach that they used as a backstop because the congressmen and women were too intransigent to do their real jobs. So sequestration needs to go. The Budget Control Act needs to just be, they need to fulfill the obligations. They need to do monthly appropriations the way they used to. They shouldn't do these omnibus spending packages that must pass on Christmas Eve so everybody can get back to their families. We have a Congress that is so incapable of doing their basic functions, and the Republicans, while I'm still traditional Republican, the Republicans are just as bad because they have spent more than the Democrats before them. So as far as how do we keep our troops, how do we keep defense spending appropriate? Do your jobs. Pass the monthly appropriations, stimulate the economy with real positive reform, and then make those appropriations which can lead to long-term planning and which leads to defense spending that is stable, reliable, and we don't have to have all these politicians that are parading around. I was here last year during the town hall, and they were all saying, well, we're for the troops. We're not for cutting. But you guys all voted on the Budget Control Act, and you guys all led to sequestration. So when I see this false narrative that they're supporting you, they're not, because they're unwilling to do their jobs. I will do my job.
Roger?
I think I alluded in my opening statements that sequestration is the product of a government that's gone awry. In my opinion, people ask me what's wrong with Congress, and this is exactly what I tell them. We had the left and the right yelling at each other so loudly, so interested in making nightly news that we can never get anything done, that there's no relationships between congressmen and women anymore. I build relationships with people. I would genuinely respect them. I will know if their kid's in a soccer game or if their wife is having surgery. I will build relationships so we can talk about a long-term budget. That's all I know how to do is long-term budgets. In our hospital, we make a one-year budget, a five-year budget. No one survives on these short-term fixes. So we need the left and right talking to each other. We need a president that wants to lead as well. So I envision that the left and the right working with each other to solve problems. And more specifically, how do we show that Fort Riley is one of the top forts in the country? And I think, my old track coach used to say, don't tell me, show me. I will show them. I will ask Speaker Paul Ryan to come for a K-State football game, to come tour Fort Riley, and then we'll go hunt deer together. We'll both go bow hunting together. I will ask leaders to come to share, for me to share with them the love that we have. Over and over, what I've heard is people cannot believe how much this community loves Fort Riley and how they're embraced by each other. And that's the story that I'm going to share. Behind the scenes, I'm happy to talk about the free airspace we have going on, how economically and quickly we can get our troops to any one of the coast. Those are all advantages that Fort Riley offers. Mostly from an economical standpoint, the cost of living, the cost of doing business in Fort Riley is a fraction on the coast. And I think that can be one of our salient points we have to share over and over. So those are a few examples of what we can do working together to showcase our community.
Okay, Roger, we will continue with you with our next question. To say the least, this has been the most interesting election year, maybe of our lifetime. But either way, in a couple of weeks, we will elect a new president of the United States. Going forward, that president is going to have to work with Congress. Your thoughts about, no matter who that is, how this Congress goes forward to work with the president?
Absolutely. I've given the scenario that, of course, I've had bosses I didn't like, coaches I didn't like, teachers I didn't like. I've had employees I didn't like, but I've always had a sense of professionalism. And I can't help but think that whether it's Mrs. Clinton or Mr. Trump, that they want this country to get better. We have to turn this country back into a better direction. And I will bring those skill sets to the table of trying to work with people, figuring out what we have in common as opposed to what we have against each other. I think Mrs. Clinton wants to work with agriculture. I think Mr. Trump wants a strong military. I think Mr. Trump has great business skills, and he can help negotiate stronger trade treaties that help our Kansas farmers and ranchers. Mrs. Clinton certainly has some experiences that she brings to the table, and I will, whatever it takes, that's my job. I'll have to work with her. So I don't see that as any impediment. You're hiring me, you're voting me in to become your congressman, to represent you, to do a job. Number one, national security. Number two, get the economy fixed. I list national security ahead of the economy because I really think as a congressman, that's my top priority. National security, economy, health care, laser focused on those issues, making our country stronger.
Alan?
I have to ask a question. Do you not think that other Republicans have gone there with the same platform? That they've gone there with that same need for change, that same willingness to negotiate, that same principled approach that I'm going to be the one to fix it. I'm going to be the one who's going to fix it despite not doing anything differently. Saying the same things. Let's cut the corporate tax rates. Saying the same things. Never Hillary, she should go to jail. Saying the same things. Do you think that that same approach just needs a different name on the door, and by simply being a different person, that it will be more effective when you go there? Because nothing will change in D.C. until we change it. Nothing will change within the party until we change it, until we do something dramatically different. And going there as a Republican with the GOP backing and with the exact same ideology and with the same support from the chamber or from Speaker Ryan or from anybody, if you're going there on the exact same platform with the exact same approach, you're going to get the exact same result. And until someone tries something radically different, and I mean radically different, like running off of the party, like running as a third-party independent candidate. Now, make no mistake, I can win this race. And if I do, I don't have to go there as a Republican who is beholden to the speaker or beholden to the party, and I can't work with the president. Regardless of who the president is, I'm telling you that I'm going to work with that president. I'm also going to limit that president because in our Constitution, it very effectively says the president is the executive, and their simple job is to execute law. And they negotiate a little bit of trade, and they do the State of the Union address, and that's about it. We don't have a monarchy. So when Congress doesn't do its job, the president reaches over and does legislative stuff. I'm the guy saying I will go there and I will work with whoever's the president, but I won't let them legislate because I'm going to do my job as a legislator. I'm going to be the guy that brings on board 25 to 30 of the best Republicans and 25 to 30 of the best Democrats. That's different, right? You haven't heard that before. You can say I'm going to work with the Democrats, but they won't work with you because they don't have to. And when you do, your party will attack you. They will. If you go across the line, they'll attack you just like they attacked Hulskamp, just like they attacked Eric Cantor. No one gets to attack me, and if they do, I don't care. I get to go there and say, anybody on this side that wants to work with me, and let's pass some legislation so that we stop the president, let's do that. Anybody on this side, same thing. Let's pass some economic reform. Let's get some real policies. Let's pass defense. Why are our boys still in the sandbox over there? Why are they still dying in a war that we cannot justify? Why is it that the Main Street hasn't recovered, and why is it that we've got the most failed healthcare system? Well, it's because Congress doesn't do its job, because people go there with good intentions saying these things, but nothing will change until we change it, and I'm offering that change. I'm offering radical change from here for every election to come.
Okay. Alan, we will stay with you with our next question here this evening. They call it the Big First for a reason. It's large in miles and people in that district. How will you represent the entire district, the first congressional district in Washington, D.C.?
Here's the deal. There's 85,000 Democrats in this district that haven't had representation in decades. Decades. And that's not fair, because as a representative, you want to get your party's nomination and you want to win, but then your job is to represent those Democrats too, even if they didn't win. That's what a representative does. There's also 119,000 unaffiliated independents, and they don't have representation. You've got such demographic changes from Junction City, from Geary County and Riley County. You go down there to Garden City and Liberal. Oh, it's night and day. Completely different demographics. But you're all still part of the same district. You're all still part of that same group that wants representation. So how do you get representation? Is it by picking the guy that says, I'm going to work for you and just you and I'm your guy? Or is it the guy that says, I'll work for you as much as I can, and the only way I can do this is if I work for everybody? I'm going to work for the people down in Garden and Liberal. I'm going to work for the Latino population. I'm going to work for the people out in Colby and Goodland. I'm going to work for the people in Manhattan, the K-Staters, and I'm going to work for just everybody. And it's socioeconomically, and it's ethnically diverse. It's a pluralistic district. So yeah, it's huge. It's the Big First geographically, but also as far as what people want from a representative. Again, I'm the guy saying, I'm going to represent Democrats. I'm not afraid to say, if you're a Democrat, give me your vote, and I promise you, I will represent you in Congress. If you're unaffiliated, you finally got somebody on the ballot, somebody that takes the best from both parties. I'm your guy. And if you're Republican, if you're a real Republican, if you're conservative, and you really want to bring government spending down, I'm your guy, because I'm all about reducing spending. I'm also about funding things appropriately, not wasting money, but working collectively so that you can reduce the size and the scope of government. You can reduce the budget. You can actually address those issues and say, we're cutting over here and here and here, and we're going to pass a budget resolution where we don't waste. The only way to do that is to collaborate. The only way to do that is to represent more than just your base, more than just those primary voters.
Okay. Dr. Marshall.
I'll represent the Big First exactly the way we've campaigned. I told you we've traveled 40,000 miles. We've been to 105 communities. We've been to 65 county farm bureau meetings, 5 dairies, 6 ethanol plants, dozens of farming operations, dozens of manufacturing operations. I've been on your fort 5 or 6 times, most recently for the general's retirement. I know the people of Kansas. I know it very, very, very well. I bring a vast amount of experience in healthcare, military, a K-State grad, a junior college grad. I've got 2 sons, or 1 son at K-State, and hopefully a second one there. I'm counting my chickens before they hatch. Hopefully my second son will be at K-State next fall as well. I know this community, this greater community. I understand it. I understand business. I understand Dodd-Frank. I've lived through the nightmare of Dodd-Frank. I've lived through the nightmare of the Affordable Care Act. My finger is on the pulse of this district. I'm born and raised here my entire life, with the exception of 4 years of residency. I've lived here. My family is here. My roots are here. I'd rather be hunting and fishing and going to a K-State football game than being in Washington, D.C. I am totally connected to this community, and we'll stay that way. As an aside, we will offer some IT solutions that no one's using right now on our ability to communicate with the different communities on a more regular basis. My staff will be Kansans. My people in D.C. will be Kansans connected to this community as well. So we'll do it like we do things in Kansas. We outwork everybody else.
Okay. We'll stay with you. And Roger, we've talked a little bit about the debt, about the national debt. Is it possible to eliminate that debt? And how do we get that done?
Something we should be spending more talking about, $19 trillion debt going on 20. There's two components to reducing the debt. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. It's going to take 5 or 10 years, not a year. Two components to fixing the national debt. Number one, no one's talking about is a stronger economy, and then number two is less spending. Growing the economy, I think I've talked about it. Government overregulation, we're spending almost $2 trillion a year on government overregulation. So we have to grow the economy. We're going to need a GDP of 3 to 4% to ever start paying this beast down. And then from the other side of the equation, we have to go at entitlements. Too much of our budget is being spent without Congress even deciding on how to spend it. We're already committed to it. So we have to, if people can work, they need to work. If you're between the ages of 16 and 65 and you have the ability to work, we need you out there in the workforce supporting yourself and not being more motivated to stay at home than to work.
Okay. Alan?
If you can pay down $19.5 trillion in 5 years, that's amazing. You should definitely be our congressman. That can't happen. That will never happen because it will take us 50 years to get out of the hole that's been dug by this intransigent Congress. Something to know is that before the debt escalated, before government spending didn't equal government revenues, for the 3 decades following the World War II, we cultivated the largest middle class. We cultivated the world's greatest economy. And we did that with a progressive tax structure and massive investments into our country, into infrastructure, into education, into science and technology. We did that because it was an investment and we grew on that investment. But I don't hear any solutions in your plan other than cutting taxes for corporations. Let's just get those companies' tax levels down and that will make the economy grow. Where have I heard that before? Sam Brownback keeps saying that. Let's just get those taxes down and that's going to make it grow. It will not make it grow. I'm an educator. If I were to say to my students, I'm going to give you all A's and then I want you to go out and be productive, they'll never do that because I gave them A's up front. The only way to pay down the debt, the only way to increase economic growth is to give those tax cuts as a reward for behavior. Domestic production, domestic jobs hiring, and buying everything domestic. If you give them those tax incentives on the back end, after they've achieved the goals, you can invest in this country. But don't just give them these massive tax cuts and say, we hope you spend it here.
Okay, and we will stay with you, Alan, as we ask our next question, and it has to do with whether you support the right to carry concealed firearms. Would you expand background checks on gun buyers? But primarily, do you support the right to carry concealed firearms?
That's a tough question. Yes, of course. I support the right to carry firearms. I'll go back to my opening statement. I served in the infantry, and it's worth noting that I was infantry and I was a Bradley gunner, but I was also designated as my company sniper. I was very good. I was top gun. So I always say this. I've already defended the Second Amendment, but I've also defended the First and the Third and the Fourth and every other amendment. So I will defend the Second Amendment, but I will also say this: as a Bradley gunner and as an expert rifleman, I'm also very well trained. I'm extremely well trained. And I don't think there's anything wrong with incentivizing training. So before someone goes and takes a pistol into the Salina movie theater and blows a hole in their leg, I'd like them to get some kind of training. Now, I'm not saying regulations. I'm talking incentives. I'm talking there's got to be a way. When I was 13, the NRA came to my school, and we took hunter safety classes. I still got the card. That's gone. The NRA doesn't do that anymore, but they should. I think that education is the key to everything, especially the safe handling of firearms. So while I won't require it, I won't regulate it, I would definitely incentivize it, and I'll be damned if I let someone put my little kids at risk because I'm taking them to see Finding Dory and they don't know what they're doing and they put a hole in my kid, because that will be a terrible day for everybody.
Roger?
Well, Alan said it's not an easy question. I think it's a very easy question. I will fight to the end for my Second Amendment right. We'll always defend the right to bear arms. I'm not in favor of any new legislation to take any of those rights away. It's very simple. Politicians tend to make the simple complicated, but leaders make the complicated simple. Very simple to me. I'm pro-Second Amendment. We'll defend it to the end. And like Alan, I was also classified as a marksman in the rifle in the Army Reserve as well. I did that on the first day, so very excited that you're also a marksman. So congratulations.
All right. We will give you the opportunity for a closing statement now, and we have 3 minutes. And I believe, Roger, you are up first in our closing statement. Again, you have 3 minutes for your closing remarks.
Growing up, I shared a bedroom with my older brother. Before I could read, my mom had 2 plaques, one on each wall. One was the 10 Commandments. I'm sure you all remember the 10 Commandments. There's one and only one God. Don't worship idols. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. The 5th one, the only one that has a promise that comes along with it. Honor your mother and father so that all may go well with you. The last 5, don't murder, lie, steal, covet, or commit adultery. On the other side was the Declaration of Independence, and my favorite words from that is that we're all guaranteed certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and of course the pursuit of happiness. I want to emphasize it doesn't say that we're guaranteed happiness. It does not say the government is responsible for your happiness. I think what the Founding Fathers wanted was that if we gave you life and liberty, you had every opportunity to pursue your happiness. I believe that we are responsible for our actions. We're responsible for our family. I'm responsible to feed my kids. I'm responsible to help pay for their education. I think that those are my ideas of pursuing happiness. I think a true conservative is a person who would rather teach people to fish than to give them fish. And to not discipline your children is basically the same consequences as giving somebody fish their whole life. When I talk about happiness as a physician, the past couple years I paid a lot of attention to patients that come into my office that are ill. And by all accounts, maybe 80% of people that have an illness have some type of mental component to it. And I'm not saying all sick people have a mental illness. I'm just saying that if you don't have happiness in your life, you're more likely to get sick. People that are happy typically have a job that they value, a job that brings value to their community, to their family, to themselves. And I think the person that trims the hedge, his job brings as much value as a person who manages a hedge fund. I've got just incredible relationships with so many workers throughout my hospital, and especially the maintenance people, or people I would consider very, very close friends. And they free me up to do the things I need to do, and they know how grateful I am for what they do. So what my mission is, I would love to see us all have that opportunity to pursue happiness. Whether you think national security is important, transportation is important, education is important, we're not going anywhere until we get this economy going again. My top priorities in going to D.C., national security, and grow this economy. I appreciate your support, your votes. Thank you so much for staying out so late this evening. I appreciate your support. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Alan?
It's been many years, so correct me if I'm wrong, but marksman's the 3rd rankingest, right? I was expert, which is 40 out of 40. I was top, so there's a difference there. I've been traveling with Dr. Marshall. For quite a while now, and we have gotten a couple debates. I'm very grateful for that. And I've heard the speeches. I've heard the opening remarks and the closing remarks, and I can quote them. I know them so well that I can tell you exactly what they're going to be. And they're pretty good. You know, they're good, canned, rehearsed pieces. I've never once prepared this stuff. I have no idea what I'm going to say right now, other than I'm going to do something different. Now, I didn't take the money, and he'll say that I went to the chamber 2 years ago to ask for their support, and I did, because it's the largest lobby, the most powerful organization on the planet. Of course, I was going to ask them, you know, will you back me? Will you not attack me? But they told me that the only way they'd back me is if I followed their script. I had to say exactly what they wanted me to say, and when I started going off script, they started to reprimand me, and I said, I will not give you my loyalty, and they left me. And that was fine, because I was never going to do what they wanted me to do. Same with the Farm Bureau. They didn't like me being critical of TPP. But TPP, my friends, is a flawed trade policy. In fact, it's not trade at all. It's an investor's policy. It's a money agreement. It takes away sovereignty from nations, and it's all about just making money off of the backs of the producers. What I'm offering is uniquely different. What you have the opportunity to do is something uniquely different. And you can keep doing the same thing. You can keep sending the same scripted, canned, paid-for politicians, or you can do something different. You can be bold and you can go out on a limb. Now, $3.7 million, the last I checked, was put into Dr. Marshall's campaign. You can't tell me that that money isn't going to be a significant factor in how he votes. You can't tell me that his relationship with Speaker Ryan, which is very cozy, isn't going to affect his ability to be autonomous, his ability to choose for himself how he's going to vote. He's never been to Washington other than in the past 3 months when he went there to pick out an office and some office staff. But Washington is a brutal animal, and they will eat you up, and they want someone like Dr. Marshall. They want someone who will give the scripted responses and will toe the line on policies that are failing you. The economic policies are failing you. The defense policies are failing you. The lack of the legislative leadership is failing you. And until you try something different, and I'm not saying that I'm the silver bullet, the expert silver bullet. I'm not saying that, but by God, I'm going to try something different, and I'm going to go there, and I'm going to work on what they used to do, which is bipartisanship. I'm going to work on what they used to do, which is statesmanship. I was in Pat Roberts' office, and he's got a picture on the wall. It was written by Bob Dole, and it was him and a couple other senators, and it said, remember the days when we could be statesmen. They can't be statesmen right now because they're too afraid of losing elections. My greatest asset? I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of losing this race. I wasn't afraid 2 years ago when I ran. What I'm afraid of not doing is serving you as a statesman. Thank you all for your time, and God bless.
All right, thank you very much. Let's give them a big round of applause. These two gentlemen were at another event earlier this evening and made their way here to make sure that they attended this event, and we appreciate that very much. We would like to thank all of you for attending here this evening, all of you watching and listening at home, and the Junction City Area Chamber of Commerce thanks you very much. Most important out of this evening is that 2 weeks from tomorrow that you get out and vote. Make sure you do that. You all have a great evening. Good night.